name is Jason Matney, and this is my senior project, Package Game Design. Before I get started, I want to give a brief introduction to my project. It's going to be a video game. The title is Broken Flame, and here's the cover designed by the graphic designer Harrison Carter. So now, with that being said, here's a little bit about me. So this year in TSA, I was on the game design team, and we placed second place in the state competition. I worked with Brandon Moore and Chad Lewis on this, and we made the game in Unreal Engine, which is what I'm also using for my game here. I've also been in robotics club for 3 years, and I've taken 3 years of technology classes at Grandview. In addition to that, last year I actually published an app under the same name, Techis, which is where my name comes from for this project. So now, under my advisors, Chad Matheson is one of my advisors. He's a software designer, and Matt Worthington is my other advisor. He's the chief technologist at Rupert Semi-X-Ray. In addition to that, I've got 3 teachers who are support advisors, including Mr. Sarnowski, who's a technology teacher, Mr. Heckendorf, the graphic design teacher, and also Mr. Smith, history teacher, but mainly just because he likes video games rather than actually running a lot of feedback. In addition to that, Sam Mock and Ivan Kirkov are also some of my support advisors, and they're students taking senior projects this year as well. So now I want to talk about my logo. So my original logo is the one you see on the right, or on the left there, and then it changed to the one on the left because I had a young design student, Isaac Harris, design it. And I like this one because it's a lot cleaner, and in addition to that, it's a vector graphic, which means that I can scale it up and down as much as I want without losing my resolution. Now I'm going to give a brief description of the project. It's going to be an open world fantasy RPG, and it's inspired by games like the Elder Scrolls series like Skyrim and Dark Souls, and a lot of other video games that I've played. And it's being developed in Unreal Engine 4, mainly because Unreal Engine is free to use. It's also got a really great graphic system compared to other things. It compares like CryEngine and that kind of stuff. And also it's very highly optimized for Windows systems. So now I'm going to talk about my overall objectives. So first I just want to learn about the design process of video games, and then hopefully make a functional video game. I also want to learn how to use 3D modeling software like Blender, and also collaborate with other students, as you saw earlier, like Gary Design, to help me with all the design choices. And finally, I also want to learn how to use Unreal Engine 4, because I really like it as a game development engine. So now, this is the software I'm using. I'm using this mainly because my budget right now is $0, and also, I also have experience with these programs. So they're all free to use, I've used them before, and so that's what I've been using. So now I'm going to talk about my timeline. So compared to my original one, I had to completely change it because my original one was just completely unreasonable. It was too aggressive. School took up way more time than I was expecting, and I just I didn't have anything specifically planned out in my timeline, and also I just didn't have an experience using any of this software. So now we're going to start out in September. Originally, I planned to get my entire game just planned out in this time period. I only got about part of it planned out. And you can see here, I got this model of a castle, which I designed pretty early on. So that's actually something I use in my current game, but it's a good starting off point. In addition, this map here is going to be the world map, and these are just different environments that are going to be present within it. Now in October, I have planned on doing a lot in terms of improving the environment and doing a lot with the combat system. And I did do some with the combat system. You can see I have these models of weapons here. You can only see a couple of them here, but you can see more in my project demonstration. And also I modeled this tree, which in Blender a tree just looks like a stick with a bunch of rectangles sticking out. But when you apply texture to them, they actually look a lot better, which you'll see later on in the presentation. Now in November, I really want to do a lot of characters in this time. But I wasn't at the point yet. I wanted to have a lot of character models done for creating computer characters and improving the player model. But in reality, I actually started talking to the guys in design class and actually presenting to them to try to help me out with it. And in addition to that, I did a little bit with reprogramming stuff and researching more about just improving it. And then in December, this is a good month for me because originally I had planned on doing a lot of architecture, but I was more just catching up on last month's improving character design. As you can see, I have this really flat character model, which I was actually using for a while, and then I have this improved version here, which it looks a lot more realistic, but it's still something I want to improve in the future. And then so in January, I planned on being pretty much done with my game at this point, which obviously didn't happen. And so this is when I wanted to start getting voices and working on all the miscellaneous objectives in the game. But really, this was, we had winter break, and I just worked on a couple miscellaneous things when I was able to. And I also worked on this dragon model here. This is actually the first design option I tried. It's actually not the one I ended up using. This kind of shows how originally I tried to join the horns directly to the head of it, but didn't really work out. Because in January and February, this was originally supposed to be a catch-up month, where I just spent the whole time just catching everything that wasn't done. And so what I did this for is I started trying to model this ogre sort of character. He's not complete right now, though, so he's not actually in my game. But I did actually finish the dragon model, as you can see here. I actually printed it out, which you can see at my private demonstration. I also began working on pathfinding, and this image here shows how this green area that goes around these walls. Unreal Engine applies a tool that basically creates a map of where exactly a computer character can move, and I can use that for all my AI stuff. So in February, I planned on actually beginning a beta test. This would have been way ahead of where I am right now. But I spent this time actually getting path working to work properly, and experimenting with instance materials, as you can see here. This is a lot more efficient than doing normal materials, because all these are from the same base one, but I can adjust things like color, reflectancy, opacity, be different textures. And with these ones, I can also adjust the scale of the texture to make the tiles bigger or smaller. I also started making a bit more in terms of modeling, which but nothing too specific. Now in March, I was planning on just fixing a lot of bugs in my game. But in actuality, I actually was able to 3D print the dragon this time, and I began working on this castle model, which I am actually using in my demo. I also started creating more environmental models, like these barrels and this pot. And actually, what I use these for is that you can go in-game and break, and the player can actually hit it with a weapon and it will shatter, and it allows you to drop items, which I think was a good thing that I included. Now in April, this was right now, obviously, so this was mainly just spent on getting prepared for the final presentation, which includes making a demo map for my game, which is kind of missing here. This is this aerial view via the path going up about into the castle. And also, while I was trying to improve the environment, I also did some more record materials. Like over here, you can see how it's have all these balls with different materials on them, and they're all on top of this water material, which is actually a pretty complex one, but I think works really well. So now, with my timeline out of the way, I'm going to begin discussing what I think are the most important video game elements, which is the artwork, the animation, the programming, player interaction, the environment, and using Unreal Engine itself. So with the 2D art portion, I have all these different textures up here. This top one shows how I was able to use texture in the environment, because I can just make a big landscape and paint over with these different textures, and it'll just blur between them to make it a smooth transition. And other things that buildings might use is like sandy brick sort of texture, which allows me to just tile it infinitely rather than having to scale up the model to match the size, the size. Another thing I did was, you can't really see it on the screen, but this is a sort of rust texture, it's a hexagon pattern. This doesn't exactly fit the setting of my game, but it's more just me experimenting to see what I could do in terms of texturing. And this fireball texture here is actually what I use to create flames, because this is actually used as an additive texture, which means that since it's adding on top of it, and black has no color to it in the computer, the black parts turn transparent, and the lighter parts become brighter. And so this allows me to create a flame particle effect, which makes the center look like a bright yellow and the outside is more of a darker red. And also, this included the collaboration with student Emily Matney, who actually drew this image of the dragon, which actually used to model the 3D. So in terms of 3D art, this shows this like character production. I went from this really basic character to this more complex one. just using Blender to do everything. Another important part of modeling, though, is creating collision volumes, because the player might see a wall, but there has to be a way for the game to determine whether or not the player is actually touching the wall. And so this includes me in Blender just dividing a mesh into a bunch of different boxes, which Unreal Engine can then use to determine like where a wall is and where a floor is and all that kind of stuff. UV mapping is also an important part of texturing for some things. Like, it's hard to see here, but I have this barrel model, and it shows how I'm going to use this texture and wrap it around on this barrel shape. Now, in terms of animation, animation includes two different parts. I'm going to talk about the model part first. So here you can see how I sort of pose my character in sort of leaning position. And in this graph here, with all these orange grid thing, just shows how the character moves between different keyframes. The keyframes are basically, I set the model up in a certain pose, and then the animation just, as time goes on, it just interpolates all the joints that rotate between those points, which creates a smooth animation. And also you can see, the armature skeleton is just sort of like, you can see in this diagram of all these sort of tetrahedron shapes going throughout it. That shows where I have the skeletal bones in the mesh. Not all of them are used necessarily, but it's more just to follow the curve of its wing here. And as you rotate the bones, it causes the model to rotate, which is what allowed me to pose the dragon in this shape like this. Another thing that's important, though, I found, is artwork actually does have to be animated in a way. You don't have to create the specific animations, but it has to have the same sort of skeleton as the character model if it's going to be able to animate in the game. Now there's the whole logic side of the animation as well. So Unreal Engine animation really works with the blueprint system. And so up here is a state machine, which shows that I start at this sort of buffer animation state, which is just the character standing still. And then from there, based on which condition is active, I go to all of these different animations. And this is all controlled using this blueprint graph here, which just shows how it'll follow the path based on whether or not conditions are true, and it'll set everything based on the C++ code of the character. I did most of my programming in C++, but because animation has to be done in blueprints, I have to have some way of interfacing with it. So next thing I talk about programming. There's not much for me to show in terms of C++, just because I don't want to just have a big wall of text on the screen. I do have a lot of code in my project binder. I'm not going to show it up here. But I did actually have to program the AI using blueprints, because Unreal Engine's pathfinding isn't really built in order for C++. And so, see how I have this big graph here, which I use to determine, so that all the NPC characters have this code. And what they do is they determine whether or not they can see the player, which is the player has to be within a certain range, and they can't be behind a wall. And so, this also lets me add in some player control to it. So I, as the level editor, can change all the different settings of the view distance and everything else based on how I set my C++ code up, because I can set variables like in the instance so I can edit them directly in the level. Now this just shows how I'm able to use blueprints to interface with C++ code, even though the bulk of my project was done using C++. So now I'm going to talk about player interaction, and this includes mainly the combat and the inventory system. So this picture here, you can see how the player is sort of smashing this giant pot and it's just flying to 1,000 pieces. Now this just shows how I can set up the players, I can set up how the player interacts with their environment. And then here's a picture of the player actually fighting against a computer player, and they're both swinging their weapons at the same time. And this image here shows how the player is moving up the staircase, showing how I can determine how exactly the player should move through the level based on the level determined. And then here's the image of my inventory system. It's pretty basic, but it shows how I have 2 slots for weapons in the right and left hand, and I have 5 different armor pieces with the helmet, the chest plate, the gloves, the pants, and also the boots. I don't actually have support for using a left weapon right now, but it can still be equipped, it just won't be functional. So now I'm going to talk more about the inventory system I have. So right now, I have set up picks up the closest item. So in my game, I have an item called the Zweihander, which when I killed this NPC character, they dropped it on the ground here. And since I'm closer to that than the player's armor, I can pick this up. And also, I can pick up armor straight off a dead character and equip it on myself here. You can see how I still have the default shirt here, but the different pants and boots. So now, the environment is also a very important part of video game design. In Unreal Engine, there's actually a lot of support for different foliage systems and creating a landscape directly in the editor. But I also have to worry about lighting and structure. So here you can see how I have the tree model from earlier, how I'm able to actually apply a texture where it has, I actually draw a sort of branch in it, and I draw little leaves off of it, and all the rest of it is transparent, which means that it doesn't actually render the transparent parts, and instead you can only see the leaves, giving the illusion of more detail in that. And also you can see here how I have sort of a pond next to some trees. And this just shows how reflective material can actually reflect parts of the landscape. And also, this shows how I have these two torches just sitting in this dark room here. It shows how I can set up a structure and I can have lighting within it. So now I'm going to talk more about the foliage system because I think it's pretty interesting. Because here I have the tree texture, the tree model, which you saw how I was able to change into this format with texture. And also, grass is pretty important. I have grass on my entire level, basically, and each of these grass models that you can see here has 1,000 vertices to it, and vertices are the main thing to limit if you want to optimize the game. So that, with these pictures here, I show how this normal grass model of about 1,000 vertices, there's an intermediate model with about 400 vertices, and then there's a very basic model which only has less than 100 vertices. So these grass models are 10 times more efficient than these ones. Now the way, I can't use this model around the whole game because it's just not detailed enough. So the way I handle this is you can only see this model when you're very close, but when you get farther away, it switches to this model, it switches to this model, that the player can't really notice much of a detail loss. So now I'm going to talk more about structures. So with structures, I have to really determine how the texture and material will wrap around it. So this image here shows I'm able to use called a world-aligned texture, which just takes a texture and translates it to match the world position of each individual pixel of them that you can see. So as you can see, the texture is lined up here, and it also gives a transition along the top here without me defining exactly all the UV maps of this castle model. Also, normal maps are important because this is actually a very flat surface here on the side of the castle, but because you're able to use the normal map, this changes how the Unreal Engine interprets light bouncing off a model. So if light is coming in from this direction, like this way, the light areas on this side show how the light is hitting here and reflecting off and not allowed to pass through to this side. And also, you can see how I have this this is actually a big coin model here, where all these little ridges are just normal maps that were put on, it's part of the normal that was put on that makes the light reflect differently. So now I'm going to talk about Unreal Engine itself. Unreal Engine, everything, all the hard coding is done using C++. Because C++ is actually very optimized for Unreal Engine. And also, Unreal Engine provides a lot of good tools, like you can see how the pathfinding system is actually able to find its way around the spiral staircase here, which is very useful. Also, the landscape tool and some other tools like different visual effects are very useful. And so, Unreal Engine also provides a very good materials system, which I sort of demonstrated earlier. And you can see here how I'm able to have this green outline around this model here. And this model is actually completely opaque, while this one's transparent in the middle. And I also really like materials because this water material is actually very complex. I have a base color part of it, which determines the color of it. This part determines determines actually the physical movement of this model. It actually moves the points up and down based on where the wave is. I also determine the opacity based on how you're looking at it. So when you're looking at it from this part, it's different from this part. So you can actually see through parts of it, but not others. Another thing I determines the normal map, because it's not all waving up and down. Most of it is just the normal map filling in and changing how light will reflect off of it. And then I apply these different properties to the base color, the reflectancy, refraction, and all sorts of different things, which are able to create a very complex material using only just a couple different colors and a couple different normal maps. So now, that's basically all I had to talk about my project. So now we're going to go into the bibliography, and I'm going to ask for any questions that anyone have.
Question.
Oh.
When do you plan on releasing it?
So this is basically going to be my summer project. Like, I didn't have enough time during the school year to finish it. So hopefully I can get it done by the end of the summer.
I know you told me that you want to add like a storyline and plot to it, so when you do that, is there a way you can set it up to where like you can maybe like where you can save where you are and things like that?
Yeah, there's definitely ways to do that. Yeah. This is actually something I did at TSA, where I used this thing called structs, which lets me just organize data in a certain way that I just reload it like a.
How do you plan on releasing it?
So currently, I made this plan of hopefully releasing it on Steam, maybe through the Greenlight system, but there's also a lot of downsides to the Greenlight system that the Greenlight system is notorious for letting in a lot of very low quality games in, which is why I'm hesitant about putting my game up on that. But mainly Steam is what my focus will be.
Do you plan on making it online multiplayer?
Maybe a little bit of functionality. Like if you ever played Dark Souls, there's sort of like an invasion mechanic. So maybe something like that, but I don't want it to be like a big like MMO sort of thing.
Jason, so you're taking my class again next year, correct?
Yes.
So what is your intention to do? Are you going to continue this or something different?
Well, hopefully I can finish this project before next year. So I have a different project in mind.
Okay, good to hear. Okay. All right, well, excellent. Thank you very much.